you have for breakfast this morning?
So I eat several meals throughout the day, but my post-workout meal, I had some eggs and some white potatoes and some pineapple.
There you go. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And the Hall's meal.
That was so good last night. That was a great steak. Great company, great conversation. That was a good time.
Absolutely. All right, Chris Clark, I'm here with Alan Stein Jr. Alan, thanks a lot for coming out. Growth Summit 2024, pretty cool event here in Columbia, South Carolina.
Super cool. Like my pre-event call with Matt went really, really well. He got me super excited. It's been really neat to see how this has grown over 8 years. You know, starting with 20 people, and now the room is packed. He keeps getting bigger and bigger venues, so it's nice to see the entrepreneurial spirit is very much alive in South Carolina, and that people want to get together. They want to learn, they want to network, and grow their businesses. You
have a fascinating journey, and me as a sports guy, I'd heard of you. I'd followed a little bit, and I've learned a lot more. But you have gone from basically high school strength coach to now a extremely sought after keynote speaker, helping people grow their organizations, their culture. So let's kind of look back on that journey. I mean,
Sure.
You started at Montrose Christian. I remember covering Kevin Durant's recruiting before he went to Texas. At what point, just walk us back through your journey and kind of just how this all started.
I'd be happy to. So basketball has always been a major pillar of my life. I fell in love with the game at 5 years old, and I'm so grateful that here 4+ decades later, basketball is still a really meaningful pillar in my life. And, having been around the game my whole life, I've seen it from every different angle. For the first third of my life, I saw it as a very dedicated basketball player, and was able to play up through, it was Elon College at the time. It's now Elon University in Burlington, North Carolina. And when I was graduating from Elon, it was pretty clear that I didn't have what it would take to play the game professionally, but I still very much wanted to be involved in the game. And while I was at Elon, I started to develop an equal love for what we now call the performance side of the game: strength, conditioning, fitness, mindset, nutrition. So when I graduated from Elon in the late 90s, I figured what could be better than combining my original love of the sport of basketball with this newfound love of strength conditioning and performance training. So I just decided to become a basketball performance coach. And I did that for the next third of my life. And now one of the cool parts, aside from what I do professionally, is I'm the father of 3 kids that all play basketball. So I've seen the game from the angle of a player, from a coach, and now from a parent, which is a pretty holistic view and pretty fun. But to answer your question more specifically, when I was in the basketball training space, I chose to focus on being at the high school level because that's where I felt I could make the biggest impact, not only on the court, but to me, most importantly, off the court, and be a good role model, and teach kids, work ethic and accountability and being a good teammate and all those things. But my work at places like Montrose, which was a basketball powerhouse, and then at DeMatha, got me opportunities to work for Nike and Jordan Brand and USA Basketball. So then I got to rub elbows with some of the game's best players. And, I'm an incredibly observant person by nature. So, when you're watching somebody like Kobe Bryant or LeBron James or Stephen Curry work out, you take some mental notes. And really that's what I do now on corporate stages, is share all of those disciplines and lessons and strategies that I learned from the game's best players. And I teach folks, in this case today, entrepreneurs, how to apply those principles to their business.
You just mentioned 3 of the greatest basketball players of all time. Give me, if you can, one thing that you learned from each of them, observing them in training. I know you have a Kobe Bryant story that I've read or heard before.
Yes, and they're going to hear it later today.
Give me just something really quick, maybe on each of those that you learned unique.
What I'll actually say is there's 3 traits that I've noticed unite all high performers. They unite the 3 folks that we just mentioned, but they also unite the high-performing entrepreneurs that are here. From basketball to business and everything in between, I've noticed high performers have 3 characteristics. Number 1, and this is actually the lesson that I learned from Kobe Bryant directly, and that is the best never get bored with the basics. The best have a strong respect and appreciation for the fundamentals. That, to me, is the foundation to which everything else is built. That's kind of the calling mantra of what it is that I preach and teach on stage and on page. The second is they learn how to blend confidence with humility. They earn the right to be confident because they've put in the work during the unseen hours. They've gotten in the repetitions. So they've earned the right to be confident. But humility is what keeps them open to being coached. It's what keeps them open to feedback. And it's what keeps them open to saying, no matter how good I am, I can still get better. I mean, those 3 players I just mentioned, as you just said, are Hall of Fame caliber players, borderline Mount Rushmore caliber players, and yet each of those guys never thought that they were a finished product. They always knew that they could continue to get better, and that takes humility. And then the third component is they're very process driven. They all have incredibly ambitious goals. Those guys wanted to be the best to ever play the game. They wanted to win championships, all of that stuff. But they realize that once they have a goal, they can take their eye off the goal and they put it on what's right in front of them. What is the process? What is the next actionable step I can take right now to inch me a little bit closer to that goal? And they stay very process focused.
LeBron is somebody that I've followed his career from when he got drafted in 2003, right out of high school until now. Incredible, he's still playing, right? That's rare.
Yeah.
But he's somebody that I remember early in his career, they asked his goal, and it wasn't just, I want to be a great basketball player. He said global icon, right? Global icon. And then you read about how he takes care of his body, right? Like the amount of time and money he spends. He's hardly ever injured. He's old in terms of the league, but,
absolutely.
Can you dive in a little bit more into, if you've observed anything on just his approach and how he takes care of himself?
Well, he's the perfect summation of those three pillars that I just mentioned, and he absolutely is very process-centered and oriented, and he's one that understands, you have to work hard in order to be successful, but especially in sport, you also have to be able to recover hard. You have to be able to take breaks. You have to be able to take care of your body. So at his age, he's probably... The pendulum is probably swung in the other direction, where recovery and rest and rejuvenation is arguably more important than what he actually does on the court or in the weight room. Whereas when he was 18, 19 years old, it was probably in the other direction. And, that's a good mentality even for entrepreneurs to have. We all go through different seasons. And when you're in the early startup phase, there's no question there's going to be some long nights and you're going to burn the candle at both ends, but that's not sustainable to do long term. So the sooner you can put some processes in place, the sooner you can put other people in place that allow you to have a more manageable schedule, to prioritize self-care, to still spend time with your family. Like there's nothing wrong with being incredibly passionate about growing your business, but if you're doing it 18 to 20 hours a day, week after week after week, you won't have a LeBron James type length career. It just isn't sustainable. So we all have to understand that, and we have to prioritize our ability to rest, our minds, our bodies, and our souls.
I'm always fascinated by going back and looking at the genesis of an entrepreneur's journey, because not everybody sets out to be an entrepreneur. Did you have that? I know you said you had just basketball and making an impact at the high school level, but did you ever envision what you're doing now?
To a degree. I've always known that I was wired to be self-employed. I'm very coachable. I take instruction well. I love being a part of a team, but I always knew that I wanted to call my own shots, and I wanted to hang my own shingle and build my own business. So even when I was in the training space, I had my own training company. I had other trainers that worked for me. I was training players. I was training teams. And then now, certainly as a freelance keynote speaker, I'm in charge of my business now. And I've just always known, I've had the self-awareness to know that's how I operate best. See, I operate best in I guess you'll call it just a commission-based business. Speaking is, you only eat what you kill. And I operate best in that. I found with myself that if you put me in just a normal 9-to-5 job with a salary and benefits, I get complacent. I start to put on the cruise control. And that's certainly not something that I'm proud of, but it's something I'm aware of. And that's why I think self-awareness is one of the most important traits for anyone to have, but especially an entrepreneur, because it isn't for everyone. And you've got to be cut from a certain cloth in order to be able to pursue that.
What are your thoughts on the moment that it crystallizes, I need to go all in on being an entrepreneur, right? So you mentioned you had kind of, for lack of a better term, side hustles, side gigs while you were training, coaching, doing all that. When did it crystallize for you, I need to go all in on my business?
Funny enough, it happened rather accidentally, and it happened probably from some youthful arrogance. When I first graduated from Elon, I came back to the D.C. area, which is where I live now and where I grew up, and I was working for another trainer. He trained NBA players, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. So I thankfully had at that age, the wisdom to know, find someone that's doing what it is that you want to do, be an apprentice or an intern and learn from them. So then, you can learn the craft. And that was a great first step. But after about 6 to 8 months of working for him, I thought I could do it better. I thought I could run a business better than he was running a business. I thought I could train better than he could. And most likely I couldn't at that time, but that's where I said the youthful arrogance, I thought that I could. So I just said, hey, there's no reason for me to go work for someone else if I think I can do this better. So I just hung my own shingle and did it myself.
You mentioned earlier that you were confident that you were, a self-starter and you had the skill set. Obviously, you're a great speaker. You believe in yourself. You have what it takes basically to be an entrepreneur. But something I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs, regardless of age, if they have a vision of wanting to be an entrepreneur, a lot of them don't know what skills they can leverage. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I do X thing. Maybe I've done that thing for 20 years. And some of those people that come to me and ask me about that, you kind of go through the list and say, you have this skill, this skill, this skill. But what advice would you give to an entrepreneur who maybe isn't sure, what is my skill set, and then how can I use that to build my own business?
Well, it's a little bit of both. What I find interesting, it sounds counterintuitive, but one of the ways we increase self-awareness is by asking the people that know us best. So many times we heighten self-awareness by stepping outside of self and seeing how other people view us. And I think that's an incredibly valuable question to ask your inner circle or your board of directors. What things do you think I do really well? What do you think my natural talents are? At the same time, have the courage and the humility to say, what are some of my shortcomings? What are some of my weaknesses? What are the areas that I have the biggest opportunity for growth? Because true self-awareness is going to be a combination of the two. It's knowing the quote unquote good stuff, your hopes, your dreams, your ambitions, your strengths, your talents, your gifts, but it's also having the courage to look on the other side of the curtain and acknowledge your fears, your insecurities, your shortcomings, your flaws, where you're fallible, where you can improve. And you need that holistic picture to really get a concrete look at who you are. And then you want to make your strengths even stronger. I'm a huge believer in doubling down on the things that we already do well. Can you make those world-class traits? And then figure out which of the weaknesses or shortcomings are applicable that you need to improve because they're going to undermine your ability for growth. And then anything outside of that, you should hire to delegate. You should, because none of us are strong in every single area. But we got to be crystal clear. And, again, another parallel to the game of basketball, it's like scouting. When you're scouting the team you're getting ready to play. If I'm a point guard and I'm going to be playing you and you're the opposing point guard, I want to know what things you do well. Where do you shoot well from on the court? What are your tendencies? What are your favorite go-to moves? But I also want to know, where can I expose you? What things don't you do well? What things give you trouble? And that's what scouting is. So really we need to be self-scouting ourselves at all times. And one of the ways we do that is by asking people in our inner circle. Remember, these aren't strangers we're asking. These are people that know us, people that love us, people that want to see us be successful. And hopefully you've created the type of relationship where they feel safe to be honest. And they feel safe to tell you the things that you need to hear, not just the things that you want to hear.
Or last thing for you, for any entrepreneur listening to this that has just heard your advice, but is saying, all right, I've got it. I'm inspired now. I need one actionable step I need to take to get started, right? That's the most important thing. Get started. What would that one tip be?
Well, I'm going to share this during my keynote later today, but there's a self-audit that I highly recommend that folks do, because as an entrepreneur, as a leader of any sort, it is your job to show up as the best version of yourself consistently, ready to make a meaningful and memorable contribution to everyone and everything around you. And that can't happen by accident. It can only happen with intention, which means you need to show up as your best self physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually if that's appropriate to you. And we can only do that if we're very intentional about filling our own bucket. So the exercise that I have folks do is I have them take out a piece of paper and draw a vertical line down the middle. On the left side of the paper, I have them write down an exhaustive list of the things that just fill their bucket, that make them feel alive, that energize them, that they love to do. This could be taking a Peloton class, or, pulling out your yoga mat, or taking your dog for a walk. It could be listening to a podcast. It could be meditation. It could be prayer. But what are the things that fill you up and make you feel alive? And that's the list on the left side. Then on the right side, ask them to write down how they typically spend the first 60 minutes after they wake up in the morning and the 60 minutes before they go to bed. their morning and their evening routine, the bookends of the day. And write down, be meticulous. What do you do from the moment your eyes open for the next 60 minutes and then 60 minutes before your eyes close, and write those things down. And then to complete the audit, you're just going to compare the two sets of notes. And you're going to ask yourself what I believe is the most pivotal question you can ask when it comes to improving your energy, your optimism, your performance, your productivity, and the way you show up. And that is, am I doing the things I know I need to do to keep my bucket full? In other words, is the stuff that I know fills me up, am I caring enough about myself and about my performance and about my family and about my company to do those things on the bookends of my day? And if you do this with some vulnerability and some courage and some honesty, you'll most likely start to uncover what's called a performance gap. And a performance gap is the gap between what we know and what we do. It is literally the gap between what we know we should be doing, left side of the paper, and what we're actually doing, right side of the paper. And I would highly encourage folks to take action and to start blending those together. Care enough about yourself to just spend a few minutes every morning and every evening doing the things that fill your bucket. Because if you do, those traits that I just mentioned will skyrocket immediately. You will have more energy, you'll have more confidence, you'll have more optimism, you'll have more performance, you'll have more output, more productivity. Like every metric that we want as human beings will immediately start to skyrocket when we make our battery full, when our bucket is full, when we are fully charged. So that's something that I highly recommend, and I've seen it radically change the way that people show up in this world.
Alan, this has been outstanding. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Growth Summit. Looking forward to hearing you speak later as well.
Thanks so much. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you.
Thanks.